Hey guys, it's All Around Stuff here, and today I'm going to talk to you about 5 baits that you need to crush pond bass. And basically pond bass are pretty easy to figure out most of the time. They run on a pretty simple pattern, but when the weather changes and things go south, you need some baits to throw that are confidence baits. And if you're just a beginner fisherman, these are easy to fish, but if you're more experienced, you'll know how to use them and you'll just have a blast catching fish on them. So let's get started. The first bait you need is definitely a trick worm or any soft plastic finesse worm. Trick worms are 6.5 inches, but you can go down to 4.5 with the finesse worm. These are zoom baits I'm talking about. A finesse worm, you could go to, I think, there's some 5-inch out there, some 6-inch. But the zoom finesse worm all around just works as a great bait for pond bass. If you can't decide what color you want to get, because zoom has 100 colors probably, if you can't decide what color you want to get, I'd go with the green pumpkin. For most applications, the green pumpkin works well. But in some stained water, you're going to want a little bit of flash in there. So you can pick something with a blue fleck. I think Okeechobee Craw is a great choice. Or what I usually go with is the chartreuse tail. This is a green pumpkin chartreuse tail trick worm, and I'll rig that up on a 3/0 or most of the time a 4/0 extra wide gap hook. So just Texas style, like you normally would any bait like that. So that's a great bait to throw around the bank. Any vegetation you have, you can skitter across vegetation. You can fish that on anywhere from 8 to 30 to 40 pound test line. You can fish it on mono, braid, fluorocarbon, anything you want. You can snake it across the surface, drop it down, let it sit, let it go down to the bottom. I just fish it weightless. I mean, you can throw it on a Texas rig, wacky rig, any number of ways. But that is definitely a bait you need to pick up because it is so versatile. The next bait you need to grab if you're a pond bass fisherman is a gold and white spinnerbait. The reason a spinnerbait works so well for pond fish is because most of the time you've got forage that's about this size. If you're going to go for bass that are in the 2 to 3, 4 pound range, you're going to need a bigger bait to match that bigger forage that those bass are going after. Especially if you're living down south where you've got Florida largemouth in your pond. I mean, you might have 8-pounders in there, so you're definitely going to want a big bait. So this is I believe this is a 3/8 ounce, which is a light spinnerbait for its size. As you can tell, this is a pretty hefty spinnerbait. I believe this is one of those Booyah Premier. It's one of the upscale Booyahs, like from the typical, just the typical these guys, which are a little bit less. They don't have quite the quality that these baits do, but so these baits are really nice. The Booyah spinnerbait, gold. The reason I picked gold and white, okay, so if you're just going to have one spinnerbait to throw all year round, I'd go with the gold and white because most bass fisheries have bluegill, or most ponds have bluegill and golden shiners are their forage species. So bluegill are going to be colored with some red, some orange, and some golden hues. If you look at them in the sun, they're yellowish gold. In stained water, this will produce those gold blades are going to work really well. And I found a whitish spinnerbait works all the time. I mean, any conditions you want to fish in, a white spinnerbait. Besides high sun and clear water, high sun and clear water, a white won't do you quite as well. But just about any. That's why this bait's a little smoky, a little darker. So this is the color you want to get for any conditions. It works. You can fish this in your pond where there's current coming in. That's the best place to throw a spinnerbait. Always put a trailer hook on there. You don't have to, but I like to. Definitely a better hookup ratio because sometimes those smaller fish will smack at this, and hey, small fish, I'll take them anyways. So definitely a bait you need to have if you're gonna be a pond bass fisherman. All right, next bait you need is a shallow running, natural colored crankbait. If you live in an area where there's a weedy pond, fish this on the deeper parts of those weeds. This is a DT Fat by Rapala, and this dives to 3 feet. On light line, it'll dive deeper, but if you throw it on 15-pound test, that'll dive 3-4 feet. And so you can fish this around any kind of cover. If you've got hard cover like rocks or wood, then just bounce a like a Rapala crankbait around that stuff, and you can pick up some bigger fish. A crankbait's a big fish bait most of the time, and get a natural color, because some of those ridiculous colors that work on reservoirs and big bodies of water when you're fishing deep and stuff, they won't always work as well in ponds because those bass are used to seeing bluegill. So I mean, just throw something natural. This is like an olive green color with the red belly, and so a crankbait, a shallow running crankbait, is going to be one of your best friends for big bass. The next bait that you always want to have ready, especially if you live where there's a lot of shoreline cover, is a frog. Now, it doesn't have to be a fancy walking frog like a pad crasher or like a bronze eye or something. You can just get a horny toad by Zoom. These guys, they work wonders. 3 colors I'd recommend. You're gonna want to get a white, a black, and something natural. This is the tree frog color, I believe. Yeah, the tree frog color, which has a greenish, whitish pearl bottom and a pretty colorful back. And this can imitate a bluegill quite well. A bluegill skittering across the surface to try and escape the bass. Or it can imitate any kind of frog that's around. Bullfrogs, pickerel frogs, anything. That kind of pearly green color really imitates a frog well. And of course, those buzzing legs are going to cause quite a commotion. Now, you can fish it in open water, but I'd recommend the really shallow, weedy, nasty stuff. Get yourself some heavy line, some 50, 65-pound braid, throw it on a heavier rod, and just cast it out there. And like my friend Nick likes to say, gotta risk it to get the biscuit. So just throw it in any kind of crap you want, and you'll pull some fish out. The next and last bait you gotta have when you're pond bass fishing is a swim bait. And you may say, big old swim bait like this? No, these aren't gonna do it. But something like this. This is a Bruiser Baits Super Swimmer in the lily pad color, which is a perfect bluegill imitator. You can go from any number of swim baits. There are tons out there, tons of soft plastic swim baits. They aren't very expensive, and you can get a pack of 5 of them for like $3, $4. So I'd go with the Bruiser Baits Super Swimmer, the Reaction Innovations Skinny Dipper, especially the Little Dipper, that smaller bait. It's a 3.5 or 4-inch bait, but that'll crush your pond bass for you. You rig that up on a 3/0 EWG hook. You rig these 5-inch baits on a 5/0, and you can hammer fish all day long. You can run this just underneath the surface with a weightless setup. Run this just underneath the surface. Fish will go completely out of the water for this bait. You can slam fish on these soft plastic swim baits. And another way to rig it up is obviously on the screw lock with the weighted, like the swim bait hook, the typical swim bait hook. I believe this is a 4/0, which is a little small, but this just definitely gets the job done on those big pond bass. So there are your 5 baits that you just gotta have if you're gonna fish ponds in order to be a more successful bass fisherman. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Go find me on Facebook. Really appreciate the views, guys. Good luck out there, and we'll see you next time. All around stuff, over and out.